Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:52 is the time, well, pretty much the whole time we've been on air. Boris Johnson has been answering questions at the COVID inquiry, particularly about school closures. This comes after evidence from Gavin Williamson, the former Education Secretary. Last week, basically said this was sprung on him and it wasn't something he supported. And I know that certainly that's what he was saying behind closed doors at the time. But also we've had Chris Whitty, Professor Sir Chris Whitty, the Chief Medical Officer of England, telling the inquiry yesterday that rules about going outside, particularly for children, were too strict. If only they'd known that at the time, even though they did know perfectly well it was perfectly safe for children to be outside, indeed anyone else. If your blood isn't boiling, I don't know why, but I'm sure it will after hearing from James Melville, a keen anti-lockdown campaigner who joins us right now. Good afternoon to you, James.
Hi, Julia, you well?
No, I'm not today because Boris Johnson is on my telly in the background, and my blood has been boiling since I've seen some of the first comments. Yet again, and this has happened with pretty much every cabinet minister, every advisor, everyone who's come on or to give evidence throughout this COVID inquiry, is they always say, oh, we did our best at the time, or we were doing our best, it was based on the evidence at the time, if only we know now what we knew then. But that's all a lie, isn't it?
It is. Remember, follow the science?
Yeah.
This wasn't follow the science. This was following political agendas and also panic. And many of us warned about this back in the time on a number of different fronts about collateral damages, of which mental health was front and centre of that. In particular, you did it, I did it. We were focusing on the welfare of children a lot. You shut down the schools for about 18 months on off. The impact in terms of educational deficits, mental health, social exclusion and isolation, not seeing their friends, not doing clubs, a talent deficit as well when kids weren't performing or doing the sports, whatever. It was, and also the mental health figures back this up. You know, 1 in 5 children are suffering from mental health issues now. That's an enormous increase since COVID. And we warned about this, and we were accused of being cranks and conspiracy theorists for pointing out the obvious on the most humane aspect, the welfare of children, and with the most inhumane response. And it's very easy for the likes of Whitty and Johnson to go a little bit mea culpa and say, well, you know, we've maybe got that wrong. That's not good enough. Too little, too late.
Absolutely.
And there's a generation of kids who have paid the price for this, and in some ways will never recover. There's the economy, the cost of living crisis and so on, but the welfare of the kids is one of the most inhumane aspects of that entire
Boris
nonsense.
Johnson, I mean, I could cry even hearing it, what you're saying, but Boris Johnson said children paid a huge price to protect society. What sort of society asks children to pay the price to save some people in their 80s and 90s? I had family members who were being, supposed to be protected. My former GP mother who was saying, among others, I don't want to be protected, thank you very much. And those people could have stayed in and been protected without any child missing school. And you know as well as I do, we have a controlled scientific experiment. Sweden did not close their schools. No child under 16 missed a single day of school. They kept society open. People were not locked down. Some people chose to withdraw from society, but it was all a matter of choice, other than major big events, large crowds. And they suffered fewer COVID deaths, fewer other deaths. Their health service wasn't knocked out, their education system wasn't damaged, and their economy wasn't damaged. The proof is in the pudding, and all they did was follow the pre-pandemic planning that we also had the same stuff, and we didn't follow it.
Completely agree. I mean, I used Sweden as a bit of a lightning rod in all of this, and the figures over time backed up Sweden's response. It was in the round the lowest excess deaths in Europe, over that 3-year period.
By a long way.
Correct.
And lower than other Scandinavian countries, because people always say, oh, Sweden's so different from us. No, other Scandinavian countries, they were lower than them.
Yeah, completely. And they also kept their economy open as well. I've often said that the cost of living crisis is actually, in some ways, the cost of lockdowns crisis. People don't want to talk about it. They don't want to blame Brexit. It's not. It was happening in terms of the economic damage happening in other countries as well. It's nothing to do with Brexit. It's to do with lockdowns, supply chains, the closure of businesses, the schools, the lack of, circular economies, all of that stuff. But for me, actually, the worst aspect of the whole thing, going back to what we're talking about, is the lack of consideration of welfare of our children.
Even down to putting them in masks all day because Nicola Sturgeon had done it in Scotland.
Well, as a father of kids who were going through that, I saw the impact. My kids are resourceful and wonderful and the rest of it, but they all had an impact because they weren't seeing their friends. They weren't getting taught properly. There's also hundreds of thousands of children, state school kids, who did not have the access to learning. They didn't have the ways and means of technology to learn. They dropped off a cliff in terms of education.
I have friends who live in leafy suburbs who got one email a week from the school and no work. I mean, people think it's just the kids in the high-rise blocks. This was just off the scale, an absolute disaster. I'm never going to forgive them. I will never forgive them. It will never not make my blood boil. But the worry is that a lot of people just want it all to go away. It was in the past. It never happened. But the reality is, if we don't learn lessons, and we're not going to learn them from this COVID inquiry, we can make damn sure of that. It's complete whitewash. The questions they ask even are useless. Is that we'll do the same thing again.
Well, this is the most important part, Julia, is to make sure voices like your own, my own, and many, many others who are calling this out for a number of years and continue to raise this issue is because of one fundamental aspect. We do not want this to ever happen again. Absolutely. In my opinion, and many others, it was the worst, most disastrous public health and social policy by any government ever in living memory.
I'm with you. I'm with you. James Melville, thank you. And thank you for all your work you did publicising the madness of all this during lockdowns.